The century thing.
We will call the Stevens Point Area Public School District to order for our special school board meeting for February 27th, 2017. Sue, roll call and verification of quorum, please.
Ms. Baker? Here. Ms. Daly?
Here.
Mr. Ebel?
Here.
Ms. Erler?
Here.
Mr. Gantz is excused. Mr. Contos?
Here.
Ms. Portson?
Here.
Ms. Rano?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
We have a quorum, 8 present.
We will stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comments. No one had signed up on the sheet. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to make public comments? No one is indicating that. So we will move into item 5, human resources. A is teacher compensation plan.
Okay, I'm going to step up to the podium and go over the PowerPoint presentation in your packet or on board docs, in board docs. And I'm going to give an overview of the plan, which is almost identical to the overview given a couple weeks ago at the Business Services Committee meeting and the HR Committee meeting. There are literally just a couple tweaks to it, and I'll point those out when we get to them. And again, as we've gone through this, so if I'm going rapidly and you'd like to have, you've got questions, please stop me and ask. The teacher, I'm going to talk specifically about teacher compensation plan as well as the support staff, and then I'm going to do some generalizations regarding both plans. The objectives for the teacher compensation plan were to attract and retain quality educators, promote professional development, and create a plan that is sustainable based on information that we have currently as it relates to our current budget as well as the state budget. The teacher schedule framework hasn't changed. Note that the numbers reflect cells, not steps. We have cells for initial educator at the bachelor's and master's level in blue and in blue and in green, and then we have professional educator for bachelor's and master's. The blue would reflect the bachelor's and the master's would be reflected in the green. The placement year is by far the most challenging year. We have to take teachers that have individual salaries and place them on the schedule. We have determined the years of local service, and we have calculated or we have costed out placing teachers with local years in their respective cell. And so they, and that would be rounded up. Nobody will go back in pay, if I may. So if somebody is, their current salary is within or in between cells, they would be rounded up to the nearest highest salary. If their salary is currently higher than the cell, for example, if local years of experience would be cell 5 at 41,400, but the salary is 42,100, they would be placed in cell 7. They would be rounded up to the nearest cell or rounded up to their current salary. Teacher advancement to move from one cell to the next would require an effective rating of 3 or a distinguished rating of 4 on the annual evaluation. That is the educator effectiveness model that is mandated by the Department of Public Instruction. Teachers would be required to have 15 hours of professional development outside the contracted workday. We're starting to use the word personalized development rather than just professional development. We have professional development built into our calendar. And during those days, we have collaboration between buildings. We have teacher-staff meetings. We have collaboration meetings between grade levels and content area, district-wide initiatives. Those are activities that are occurring within the school day during those days. This would be development that would be tied into an individual teacher's personalized development, what's more important to them individually. If you would receive a master's degree, you would receive a $2,000 increase in pay. So for example, if you're a professional educator in cell 13, I'm just pulling a figure out, that's 45.5. That teacher would receive a salary then of 47.5, which would go over to cell 34. Is that right? Yes, rounded up. Then, of course, they would continue then down the cells on the master's professional educator side. Here's the one change that we added since the last time that we met, and that's the Public School Works completion. We have a number of online trainings that we require staff, teachers, as well as support staff, and it's online. Those types of trainings would vary from group to group. We've been doing that, Tom, for, this is not the first year. This is the second year.
This is the biggest, busiest year.
Yeah, so, and we're tying that in because, quite frankly, we've got to monitor. These are trainings that are mandatory, and we simply have to, track all of this. All of these hours, including the Public Works completions, can be tracked on My Learning Plan, which is the software package that we use for educator effectiveness.
Can you give just so I can wrap my head around it, an example of a Public Works training?
Example of a Public Works training.
Public school work? Well, it would be seclusion and restraint, lockout, tagout, right to know, confined space entry, bloodborne pathogens that everybody has to, either state or federal mandated.
Some are required by all employees. Myself, for example, I have to do these online some of these online trainings. It would just, and then some would depend on specific areas.
Thank you.
So you're saying those are not, those do not count for the 15 hours?
They have to, yes.
No, those aren't, those we're doing right now.
Right, okay.
These are things that everyone needs to take, not just teachers.
Some of those, all employees take, including myself.
Yeah.
Some of them are completed by teachers. Some of them are completed just by certain support staff groups. It would, depending on what that training would be.
Thank you.
We're using it more and more, you know, and it's a change. It's one more thing to do, but we're also finding out it's more efficient and effective. Bloodborne pathogens, for example, I can remember back in the day, we would all be in the auditorium and the school nurse would be going over bloodborne pathogens. And though it's very important, we can do that electronically and we can save a lot of time, and there's flexibility with people doing it rather than shutting down the district and having all the employees at one place, busing everybody there. It's just more efficient. If I got to back up, Connie is not with us tonight. The girls' basketball team is playing in the regional finals tonight, and that's pretty exciting. Her daughter got back a couple weeks ago, and so I said, Connie, go watch your daughter play. Teacher professional development, we talked about the 15 hours. Connie is working on that. There's a lot of work done on that. We're going to share just a little bit tonight. She has a committee of teachers coming together, 20 teachers on Wednesday to review some of the work that's getting done. What we're focusing on these hours is flexibility. So teachers have access to this, whether it be in the summer or during the school year. Some of this will be online. Some of this will be done and hosted and taught by our own instructors, our own teachers. And again, the key there is flexibility, so staff have the opportunity, if they so choose, and I'm assuming they will so choose to do that, they have the flexibility to actually get those hours in. I'm not going to read this word for word, but this reflects some of the research in terms of why we have professional development time, and it really is then starting to divide up what we do within the school district, what we do on a daily or within our contracted time versus what we're looking at in terms of personalized learning. And this document that Connie put together is something that we certainly we'll just email what we have right now, knowing that it's really a work in progress. For example, district-sponsored opportunities, workshops and courses generated and led by district teachers, administration, or instructional leaders. Examples, technology workshops. You know, she's already got documents that include specific workshops that have been developed. Some of this stuff isn't new. We've been doing this for years. What we're able to do now is put some structure to it. So Connie will be sharing this work with a group on Wednesday. This isn't something that I'm going to be asking the board to approve. When it comes to approval time, we're going to be asking the board to approve that schedule along with the advancement requirements. It'll be that simple. This other stuff will be put together administratively, and then again, professional development time is captured and accounted for in the software, My Learning Plan, which will be approved by the principal as the principal is working with each individual teacher on their professional learning objective as well as their educator effectiveness evaluation. All of that stuff gets recorded in My Learning Plan as well as, and Tom, I'm going on a limb here, as well as the public school works completion can also be tracked through My Learning Plan, I believe. So there'll be an accountability system that gets put into place. So there's a simple tracking to all of this. And of course, upon completion, then it goes to the HR department in terms of actual movement on the salary schedule for the following year.
So one of the things that I've been having some conversations with Sue about is creating a calendar for the board of what should come up when. You know, whether it's the superintendent's evaluation or a teacher's on-call report or this. Because as Craig's pointing out, we as a board don't have a say in the day-to-day how you're doing it, but it's really important that we as a board have, probably especially with respect to this, an annual report out about kind of what those courses are and how they relate to the mission of the district. So potentially this could be something we could build into an annual kind of report out to the board of here's how we're fleshing out that staff development. And here are the different things we're focusing on based on what's happening out there with education trends. I mean, it's both communication to us, but it's also communication to the community about, again, going back to, for me, the outcomes, because we're as a board being asked to approve this, but ultimately we need to be held accountable to the community about what we're getting out of it, why we're doing it. And that's that outcome part of it.
While we're on this professional development piece, can I ask you a couple questions, or do you want to take questions?
Go ahead.
I have to say, I really like the idea of Connie heading up a group developing professional development. Or working on courses and seminars and so forth that our teachers can take. I really like that because I think that what that does is it encourages engagement in the district. It encourages our teachers to take on leadership roles in teaching, being trainers for others. And I think that that's a terrific thing. But I just have a couple of questions. And I think we talked about this at the HR committee, but now that we're being recorded, it's probably best to go and touch on it again. So on this one, teacher advancement, it says 15 hours of professional development outside the contracted workday. Does that mean that the 15 hours have to be outside of the year, or on our institute days, will she be doing, or certain class days, will they be doing these professional development seminars, workshops, whatever you want to call them, and can our teachers take those and participate in those on regular work time to get their 15 hours?
No. During the institute days, which we refer to them now, we're changing that term to be professional development days.
Okay.
During those days, we had one last Friday. And during that particular day, Connie was in here presenting to a group of staff members. Various activities are happening throughout the school district. There's teachers collaborating with content area, there's teachers collaborating from grade levels. There's social or student service committees meeting. There's various teachers that are putting on seminars during that day, just as you explained. Those are district days, days that we are already compensating our teachers. The 15 hours is above and beyond that. It's outside of the contracted day. It's either on Saturdays or at night or during the summer.
So this would be akin to, if I were a teacher, this would be akin to me taking a class at UWSP that would be...
That would count.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll still offer seminars taught by our own staff during the summer, for example. We'll have online opportunities that will count towards those 15 hours. The approved college programs will be.
So those 15 hours, just to be crystal clear, those 15 hours take place outside of our regular scheduled calendar, just as if I were taking a class on my own time at UWSP or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah.
But it would have to be approved ahead of time by the district. You couldn't just pick up random
No, I'm talking about the
classes.
15. I'm talking about the...
I'm saying the 15. You couldn't just pick a random class at UWSP and take it. District has to approve it
Sure.
as something that fits within the
Yeah.
development the district wants to see teachers.
It does have to be district approved, and there will be a process for that. That's what Connie's putting together. We want to keep that somewhat tight because we know it'll expand, but we don't want to get that to get out of control, if I may. But remember, this is personalized learning as well, so there'll be some flexibility there for teachers to have some decision making in terms of what they think is personalized. For example, right now they have requirements for certification. We don't control that. That's done through their own PDP program. We also have school learning objectives. Tony Evers is trying to bring those together, which makes sense. Now we're asking for 15 hours. At the end of the day, I think all of this relates. We're going to go through a strategic planning exercise over the next couple months, and out of that will probably come 4 or 5 district level goals. Technically, all of this stuff then should fall underneath those goals. Now, I've been in this business long enough to know that, generally speaking, the development that has been occurring, likely, most of it, now some of it maybe not, likely will fall underneath, the strands of the goals. I mean, I don't think there's any it's not rocket science. We're going to have a goal around student learning. We're probably going to have around finance. We're going to have one around technology, one around enrollment. I'm just really generalizing.
Yeah, but you're going to figure that out, and that's the role of administration. That's what I just wanted to understand, was that if this was going to be something that the district offers during district hours or outside of district hours. And what I understand you telling me is it'll be outside of district hours, but that if a teacher participates, that the teacher will have the opportunity to participate in 15 hours. So they won't have to incur any additional personal expense if they're not interested, if they don't want to.
If they don't want to, they'll be able to meet all of these hours without, yeah, absolutely.
Got it, okay.
Now, granted, a teacher may decide to take a graduate credit from a private unit, from Marquette University. You know, that's their decision to do
Right,
that.
right. So a teacher can meet this inside the district,
Yes.
just on their own time. Got it, thank you. Appreciate that.
Anybody else? Stepping into support staff. Again, support staff will be placed on years of local service, and their salary will be also rounded up to the closest step. And these are the exact same salary schedules that Tom brought forward a couple weeks ago. Again, we're finishing up the study in terms of the SAFE system as it relates to actually placing. You know, we're coming to completion on that, and then we will notify staff what level they'll be on, what step system they'll be on, what their current salary is, and then what their new salary will be.
So with support staff, is there also a qualifier that they will be required to
Yeah, I thought
Take
that was on here
on-
somewhere.
the public school works completion?
They will also require the public school works completion. They will also be required to have a positive review. That, what a positive review for support staff, quite frankly, needs to be defined yet. With the teachers, we already have a statewide system referred to as educator effectiveness, and we're suggesting or recommending that they receive a 3 or 4 on that. With the support staff, we'll quite frankly have to create a uniform document. And that's probably going to be a work in progress. You know, there's all kinds of documents out there. We need to get a document so we have one up and running, knowing that we'll want that to, that eventually will grow, because certainly we want that to be a meaningful,
So they will have to be a
Experience.
certain level of competence.
correct.
Secondly, it's my understanding that, you know, so with respect to teaching staff, there's this 15-hour component outside. And actually, we're not requiring that of support staff.
Correct.
So to me, I'm thinking we're not requiring it because many of them are hourly. and
Yeah.
If we required it of them, then we would have to pay them time and a half
Yes.
to do it, because we're directing them that they have to do it in order to, I mean, is that part of the dynamic of?
When I stepped into the district, we had our first meeting, Barb was there, and we started talking about professional development as it relates to support staff. And I'll be frank, I couldn't find the connection when I came here. I'm struggling with that connection, but you know what? You've been working and talking about professional development as it relates to support staff, you know, for the last certainly year. So I'm running with it and thinking, let's dive into this. And we met, and then through the questions and concerns and conversations, you know, the light went on, and that's what I was struggling with. Hourly employees are just that, they're hourly. If we want to require something outside of the regular school day, we have to pay them. It's comparing apples and oranges. And quite frankly, if it's required,
They have to do it.
they're doing it. They're doing it on their own time, on district time, and they're already being compensated for it. If they don't do it, quite frankly, that's a bigger problem. Then we talk, I mean, they don't have a choice on some of these mandated trainings.
Well, to get, and I'm sorry, I interrupted. In order to get a positive evaluation, we have certain expectations that they do certain things, right?
And that will, absolutely. Yeah, and that'll be one of them, the training that is required, you know, making sure it gets done in, you know, in a timely fashion and whatnot. But as soon as we start requiring outside of the school day, then we have to pay. Now we're looking at paying time and a half to do, it didn't make sense. And not that we don't value professional development, but we do, and we provide, as Tom stated, a tremendous amount of professional development for our support staff. They're highly engaged. It happens to be within their contracted time, and that's just the way it has to be because they're hourly.
So initially then, what moves them forward, at least for the first year, is a good evaluation, which means they're doing whatever is required, and then the time, a year, they've moved on a year. That's
In
what.
this, in the
Right.
public school works
Right.
completion.
Right, if they meet their public school works expectations in terms of their mandated
Right.
Professional development online, and they get a positive review, then they will move from one step to the next step.
Okay.
Can I ask you for some examples and of what these different level 1, 2, and 3 are? And I want to tell you, put this in context for you. I've gotten very few emails about this. I guess I thought I'd get more. But one of the emails that I did get on this topic had to do with special education EAs, and that they have a little bit different job than a regular EA. And I guess I'm wondering, is level 1 special ed EAs? Or just give us some
Support staff
examples.
schedules, I'm right here, I'm on custodians. A level 1 custodian would have a higher responsibility than a level 2 custodian. Now, exactly what that responsibility is, I couldn't tell you that right now. That's part of what we're doing with the SAFE system. We're determining what the expectations or requirements are for all of those, but that would reflect responsibility level and an expertise level within our custodians, clerical and office staff placement as well. If you're a level 1, you've got certain responsibilities which would be very different than a level 5. And you're asking specifically, excuse me, about classroom support staff schedules. Level 1, without having Florence here, and again, this meeting was set up, when we set this meeting up, it was a couple weeks ago, and I think we set it up actually following a closed session. Florence had another commitment, a community commitment. There's a spaghetti dinner that she's responsible for tonight. But going back to yours, and Tom, you might help me, I'm guessing that level 1 would be a special education, level 2 would be, help me out.
Well, we purposely didn't list the job titles because we haven't completely pegged them yet.
Okay,
Typically, a special ed aide would be in level 2,
okay.
and a regular aide would be in level 3.
And what's level 1? Just an example.
This is classroom, level 1. That would be more of the, gosh, I don't remember which one that is. I think that is the occupational.
If you don't know, don't tell us. Get back to us on it.
Yeah,
No.
I'd
We had
rather you be
we had asked
accurate.
you that once before, I think. I thought you had said the nursing, the
Nurses
nurses.
would be in 1, yes.
Okay.
We specifically didn't title him yet because we didn't want to spend too much time having the conversation that, well, no, that one really should be at
Right.
level this or that. And so there's a reason we don't have the titles there. But I think to answer your question, or in a general term, Trish, a special ed paraeducator would be at a higher level than a regular ed.
That was the email that I got
Yeah.
from somebody saying that they felt that it should be, and I said,
They
you know
will
what?
be.
I agree with you.
They will be.
Yeah,
Well, I think part of that, Trish, too, was that Carlson Detment that said our special
Yeah.
ed
that's right.
aides are way below what they should be.
Two different issues there. One, yes, there'll be a separation between a regular ed classroom paraeducator as well as a special ed. How much of the difference
Right.
is yet to be determined.
But I mean, I
Yeah.
think that was part of where the email
Yeah.
came from, too.
So when we actually come to vote on this, you'll fill in some of those?
Yes.
You'll fill in all those details?
You'll have the titles of each level.
Okay, great, thank you.
You need to in terms of,
Yeah.
When you went through the SAFE system, did you do all employees?
no, I
And-
believe there was a sampling of employees. Tom?
Okay,
I believe that's the way they did it, because obviously, certain jobs are repetitive throughout the district. A regular ed aide at Bannock is gonna be same,
Okay.
pretty much a regular ed aide. Same with special ed in certain categories, et cetera.
might it be different at different levels, like the junior high level or the high school level be different than the elementary level?
Can be absolutely,
So would they,
that was done by HR, so I'm sorry, Barb, I can't tell you that.
Those are great questions. We'll get that information for you.
So
okay,
I guess the other board observation is, in the time I've been on the board, the vacancies that go unfilled are special ed EAs. And so, to me, it might be interesting to see what our competition is out there. So that we have a realistic understanding of, whether we've got people driving to Rapids because they think they're gonna make a little bit more money, and if we could keep them here, if, because they are vacancies, and they do create, from what we've heard from administration, they create pressure within the schools.
I wouldn't be surprised also if you go back and you look at Carlson Detman, which I'm not saying to use, I'm not saying adopt it, I'm just saying that it might provide a little bit of guidance. I wouldn't be surprised, especially based on Barb's question, if you actually need to add one more line in here. And you'll have to figure that out. But when we're talking about the EAs in particular, if we're talking about a classroom, an elementary school EA versus an EA that's working at SPASH or the Life Skills Center, that may be that may require two separate lines on here. And I would never be upset if you came back and said, you know what, you're right, we need a second line, a fourth line on here, if that would improve things to address our needs more accurately.
But I also think we need to recognize with Carlson Detman, number one, it's a few years old,
Yeah.
which doesn't mean that numbers haven't gone up, because they likely have. But for every, we also have outliers with respect to the fact that we're paying above competition with respect to certain things. We need to recognize that. We're not talking about making any changes with respect to that.
You know, I'll add this as well when we talk about implementing compensation models, and I've said this many different times. It's not going to be perfect. I don't know if it'll ever be perfect, but certainly we've got to step into this knowing that there certainly can be, you know, tweaks and changes down the road. If we think we're going to get this thing right in the middle of the year as we're building this and then moving and placing, you know, it's likely, and I've had my colleagues tell me, Craig, it takes a couple of years
Sure.
to really cycle through and tweak, and so there'll be a lot of questions, and I'm taking note on some of these. They're very good questions. I don't want to get into the philosophical conversation about different levels with special ed paras, because I can say the same thing with elementary teachers and middle school teachers and high school. You just can't compare them. They're different levels.
Yeah.
But sometimes responsibilities in terms of caseload does matter, for example.
just so I'm clear, and if anyone's listening maybe, they might have a question. So if I had 10 years of experience with the district and I was a special ed EA, I would probably be put at $15.88?
Assuming that level 2 is for special ed, and that's what we heard, yes, yes,
Unless your hourly rate was greater than that.
Right, okay.
yes. Yeah, if you had 10 years and your hourly rate was $16.28, then you would go to step 13.
Okay. And if I had any extra experience, if I was somewhere else for 10 years, does that get counted at all?
Right now, we're using local years of service.
Okay.
We will also have a, which I think I'm getting to yet, an appeals process
Right.
for people that that have, you know, potential issues in terms of placement.
Okay, thanks.
Okay? Implementation plan, we need to have board approval. Staff will be provided their salary and/or their hourly rate, depending on whether or not they're teachers or support staff, and their placement for next year, 17-18. We have an appeals process that we are currently developing. The professional development activities are being determined, communicated. They will be communicated by the end of the school year. Obviously, we have to have that in place, and we will. We've got enough stuff in place right now where teachers will be able to begin scheduling their development that they're interested in. And of course, the tracking process is also in the development phase, but we really believe My Learning Plan is going to be able to document those hours, what we simply, not simply, but obviously we have to put a process in place. And there's processes that need to be put into place for all of this stuff. That's it. Questions?
I think it looks good.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited to have this moving forward. Really and truly. I think it is long time needed, and it's just really a positive move.
At our last teacher compensation committee meeting, we took a vote, a confidential vote, and everyone had I did not vote. Everyone had an opportunity to vote to determine whether or not we move this forward to the board, and it came back, I want to say 15-1. Move it forward to the board. And I think, and I met with SPASH. I was invited to speak with the SPASH staff last Wednesday. We had a very, I thought a very good conversation, a lot of questions, and I felt generally people were interested in moving this forward. I didn't ask for a show of hands. That's what I have that particular committee. That committee has representation from each building. Those representatives on the committee were presenting actually to the staff. I was there as a resource. And so I feel like we've got a good structure to move forward with, knowing that we can make changes with the structure itself as time goes on.
Our support staff group got snowed out
Twice.
Are you planning to get that group back together, or not?
You know what? I certainly can. I certainly can. I think my mind shifted a little bit when we got away from the professional development conversation, because that was really the tripping point where that committee couldn't understand what that meant. But you know what, Sue? We certainly should do that. If not, we should do that. That'll be, we got a couple weeks yet before our next board meeting. But if nothing else, Barb, we need to communicate this conversation in terms of where we're at with them. I think they're all kind of paying attention, but we can, the committee itself, however, we had, well,
We tried.
We had a focus group for all staff, support staff, and the only people that showed up were the committee members. So I had an opportunity really to present all of this to a focus group, not specifically the committee, but it was only the committee that was there. And I think that's why I made a decision not to move on with another meeting. Let me put a little thought on that.
Okay.
If it's beneficial, I might reach out to a couple members, and if it's beneficial, absolutely, we can call a meeting.
Trish?
So I know we talked about this at the HR meeting a little bit, but I think it's good to, again, have this discussion with the whole board. I want to understand, and I think that our staff that have that are union and have bargaining units need to understand how this pay plan will interact with union negotiating.
It's difficult having this conversation about a supplemental pay plan as we can't negotiate supplemental pay. At the same time, the two do come together. Any type of bargaining for those that have bargaining units, any type of an agreement or contract between the board and that particular association, that agreement, those dollars, if I may, will get embedded into the plans. And I guess that's really the only way I can explain that right now. This is by far the most difficult year because we're trying to create the pay plan, which is separate from negotiations,
Sure, I don't want.
but they do relate
Yeah.
in the end.
I don't want to talk about this year that we're in, right, well, which would be 17, 18. But, so, I want to take this out one farther year, 18, 19. And I have to, I'm just going to ask for Dan's assistance because we just went through this at the county. And what our staff at the county was, what we were told is that everybody can expect to go up, one step every year. And so my question is then, everybody's going to go up one step, but if you are in a union, will you additionally, well, I'm sorry, let me finish up with the county, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. What we were told at the county is everybody could expect to go up one step, but then if the county could afford to do a cost of living raise, and this had nothing to do with unions, just simply a cost of living raise, the county would, in addition to that step up, give you a cost of living raise. So,
Trish, I just want to step back. We got two different plans here, okay? We've got one plan that covers support staff, and that is a step plan. We've got another plan that covers teaching staff, and frankly, the schedule doesn't cover all staff. So that's the first, I guess, thing that we all, as a board, need to recognize. So we're not saying everybody is going to automatically get a step up. There's some people that aren't, frankly, on the schedule, and ultimately, with respect to the teaching staff, they're going to have to do what's required of them in order to have a step up. But I guess I just want to take it back one step. We have to negotiate contracts first. And at least in my perspective, we have to negotiate our existing contracts, and we have to have them completed before we can look to create this. Because that is what is going to provide the funding support for this.
Okay.
But I want to step back even further.
I'm not talking about this coming year. I said
No, but I'm
18,
talking,
19.
moving forward. Moving forward fundamentally, this district has a certain amount of dollars that are available to us that the state gives us.
Understand.
And right now, but right now, this plan, we are in some ways taking a leap of faith that we are going to receive additional funding under the governor's biennium proposal. And we're not going to know that till October. Right now there's the governor's proposal out there for 200 categorical aid dollars, which don't roll over, they don't add to our base. They're there for 2 years and then they go away. But we don't even know if we're going to have those.
I get that, but
I think I can comment.
yeah, I mean, how,
I'd like to make a comment on that, knowing that Judy's hand's going to fall off here in a moment. What I didn't bring up, we have incremental costs here, and that pay plan right there is about 0.9%. And I think that's kind of where you're getting at. What I'm asking you to do, if we approve this, we're asking you to approve a pay plan that's going to have incremental cost of just under 1%, regardless of what happens at the state level, regardless of what happens with negotiations. That's all separate. If a teacher puts in their 15 hours appropriately, and they get appropriate evaluation, and they move from one cell to the next. That we have built in about 0.9%. Now, what happens next year then beyond that as it relates to any type of bargaining unit will be determined next year. This schedule may or may not go up depending on a lot of different variables that we don't know. What we do know is approving this is going to approve a schedule that goes up by almost 1% for support staff, or for teachers and for support staff, maybe just a little bit more than that.
Conceptually, if you're also talking to the schedule itself, in the future, the schedule, the values you see up there could increase.
Yeah,
And I think that's where you're going.
that's one part of it, right,
The
yes.
values could increase. Now, the relationship for the reason of that increase may or may not be related to negotiations. We won't know that until we go into the future. But obviously, it would be related to the availability of funds to sustain that change. So just like pre-Act 10, you've got a salary schedule, there's incremental costs, and the schedule itself could improve depending on availability of funds and how that availability is determined, whether it's through negotiations or not, or a combination of negotiations and something else.
I just,
Like the county.
yeah, I just think it's important to think that process out now, because a year from now, we have union members that are going to come to us and say, okay, how does this work? And we need to be able to answer that question.
Conceptually, it's embedded into it's already there. The restrictions we have are that which is going to be imposed on us by law and by the legislature through budget bills. By law means also through negotiations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Judy?
All right, so actually, you're on the perfect slide. So I'm curious, are you going to use this like a comp ratio scale, or is it going to go straight from, if you look at 6, if I'm in cell 6, I will automatically make $500, or are you going to be using those as ranges, or are they going to be true step, like?
Those are cells, those
Numbers.
are placements. If I have 3 years of experience, I'll be placed next year on cell 4 at 41,050, and then the following year, let's
If you
say-
meet all the requirements?
Yeah, then, and then I go to 41,4.
Okay.
At that time, I have to have my credentials with DPI approved to become a professional educator. Then I would, the following year, move up to cell 6 at 42. Again, assuming that I do the things that are required, it would be step, it would be that dollar amount.
Okay.
And you can see the professional educator is a cell step of $500, and the professional educator masters is, I want to say it was $1,340. And somebody said, well, where'd you come up with those numbers? It was a balance between creating what we think is a competitive starting salary at $40,000, and it is, and putting as many staff members, teachers as possible on the grid. And we stopped at $70,000, and we have people that are off that grid, and the question is, well, why? Well, we have plenty of people that go up to like $76,000. If we create more cells, the cost of this thing goes through the roof. So we came up with what we thought was reasonable, and I can be challenged on that, and that is a starting salary of 40 and a top of the salary schedule at 70, and we could create fewer cells to get to the top. That would increase the numbers of dollars that go into it. So it was a balance, and I've been talking to the teacher committee and the staff, and as well as you as the board. It's a balance between creating a competitive, sustainable model and a model that is supported by staff, as well as a model that you as a board feel comfortable approving. And that's an interesting balance right there. Obviously, teachers would like to see those numbers higher. I'd like to see those numbers higher. I also want you as a board to approve this. And so therein lies the balance between what's appropriate. And as I step back, I think what we have are the bones of a good schedule, and it's a schedule that we can grow and modify as time goes on.
So we've got a pie. I mean, we have a defined pie by the state of dollars that we can spend, and it is a finite pie. And we have a legal obligation as a board to bargain. And the legal obligation is to bargain to CPI. Ultimately, that's required by law. That's where we are right now. We're bargaining the contract. And we have to, in my opinion, we have to bargain and we have to come to either acceptance or as a board make the decision to impose. And then we will have, as a board, the ability to determine funding available within our district to fund a supplemental plan. And so, to me, it's a two-step process. We've got to complete our obligation to bargain, and then we have to take a look at this. I mean, this is the future of our district, but it's not bargaining. It's something that we, as a board, have full authority to determine to do because we think that it's going to help us support our mission of preparing a student to be successful and to recruit and retain and compensate our staff, whether they be teachers or support staff, in a way that they will stay with us and help us be successful in our mission.
Can I ask one last question about the 70,000 top? So maximum, I'm kind of struggling with, because right now our top step is 72, right?
We don't have a step.
Well, I know we don't.
We
but-
have staff or teachers specifically that are up in the $76,000
Oh, wow.
range.
I just philosophically, I'm kind of struggling with going from where our top is right now to pulling it back. But that having been said, what my real
Staff members that are over 70,000 will continue to make their salary.
No, I understand that. But here's my question, is that in your group that you were working with to develop this, what was the conversation about the maximum being 70? Just tell me how the feelings and comments were in
Well,
your
if you're
group.
not on the grid, you certainly would like to see your salary on the grid. There's no question about that. I mean, there was conversation about why don't we go up to $76,000, and of course my answer is, if we do that, the cost for placement right now is 1.66% based on what we're talking about. If we go and we increase that, you're going to increase those dollars, and then if you want to, there becomes a limit. That what's the limit in terms of what you're willing to put, what we're willing to put on the schedule. And if we increase that, but we want to keep the same amount of money going into it, we have to decrease dollars within that schedule. And then I'm bringing forward a schedule that I don't think is very strong. And something that's, I don't think it's a good place to start. This is a good place to start.
I understand what you're saying, and I respect that. My real question is more of a philosophical question, is that what message are we sending to future teachers and future staff that we're actually lowering the potential maximum pay? And that's where I'm getting at that conversation. Just tell me about the conversation that had in your group of representative staff members.
They would be concerned that the perception is that it's been lowered, although it hasn't been lowered because they'll maintain that salary.
And I'm talking about future.
And these numbers over time will go up. That $70,000 over time, based on a number of variables, will go up. Yes, there was concern, Trish, about that. But all but one person agreed, let's move this forward. And I think the message is, we've been working on this for 6 years. It's not perfect, and that's a part of it that might not be perfect. But if we wait to get it perfect, we'll have this conversation next year at this time, and we still won't have it
Yeah,
done.
I'm not,
And so I think
don't
the
want
general,
that.
I think the general consensus is, let's move this thing forward, knowing we can always change that. You can always increase that, based on future budgets,
Funding available.
based on future funding.
Judy?
Yeah, so I was actually
Oops.
going to speak to that, because what happens is, it's not going to go down. So that 70,000 will not go down, and so if you look at adding percentage, just like
Yeah.
everything goes up in time, this will too. That's why I'd asked the question about the range, because as you add more money, you may actually stretch out, you know, the cells depending upon where you go. So it's almost like a living thing. As you add money, or as money comes in and makes it available, that you can actually increase that. So you increase the level and then figure out where you are in each step, so.
And I think one thing to
Won't be
really
static.
keep in mind, and I think after years of talking about this, and I talked to a number of superintendents when we were at the convention that I know about their plan, and the first year, that's what you have to continually think about. This is just getting us going on the first year. Nothing's going to be perfect, like you said. And it doesn't mean things can't change. Some people had different things that they did with a higher group that may be in years to come, you know, because you don't want to tell the group that's up there, that's it, you're never going to have more. Who's going to feel like they want to move forward? So I think there are all kinds of things, but the most important thing is to get the system started and going, I think.
I think there's also, for me, it's the reality, and I again, I'm going to, I want to challenge us, and I've talked with Craig about this, I've talked with Chris about this. I want to challenge us as a board, and I know I'm throwing it out here, but I want to challenge us as a board as to what our outcomes are from this. I mean, I truly believe that we need to come up with 4 or 5 outcomes of why we're doing this, so that over a course of time, as a board, we can measure whether we are meeting those outcomes. And they're as simple as increasing professional development in an area and in ways that we as a district believe are going to drive our mission. It's also retaining our young 3 to 6 year teachers, where we've seen levels of attrition that I don't think we're comfortable with. And it's a reality across the state. It's not just us. But I think if we could come up with 4 or 5 initial measurements about what are we trying to accomplish with this, then we
It justifies
also
what we're doing.
are able to, again, if we don't meet the outcomes, there are 2 ways we can look at it. We can either look at it as it's not working, or because Post-Act 10 has introduced the free market system to education, we need to dedicate more dollars to it. I mean, it's one or the other, but at least will give us some objectives that we as a district are looking to achieve to achieve our district mission, and it will allow us as a board to be able to sit down and say, okay, we're a year in here, we're 2 years in here, and what are we seeing in terms of professional development? What are we seeing in terms of staff stepping up for leadership positions? What are we seeing in terms of increased attention towards masters that are focused in on where we as a district think will be helpful to us? What are we seeing in terms of retention of the quality staff that we want to do. So I guess I'd like to see that from a board perspective as a component when we look to pass this, as well as with support staff. Let's come up with some fairly broad, probably not the perfect parameters or measuring objectives, but something that will allow us to understand what we're achieving based on what we're doing, because we're really saying that we want to dedicate significant additional funding or significant funding within our pie to this plan. I mean, it's shifting resources out of a finite pie.
I agree with you 100%. And frankly, this first page, the teacher compensation plan objectives, I feel like it should say right here with, I know you started this, but I feel like it should have, that's where it should state those outcomes, those proposed outcomes. And when I think back to HR back in August, and sitting in the HR committee and seeing that we had 10% turnover, that's stunning. That's stunning. And we need to bring that down. And right there is an outcome
Absolutely.
that you know, a measurable, objective outcome that can be placed on here to reduce staff turnover. You know, how that's worded exactly, we're going to have to wordsmith it. But I agree with you that I think 4 or 5, and developing leadership, that's another one that, you know, we've kind of ebbed and flowed on that in the district, and I think that that's very important because, again, that encourages engagement by our staff, and engagement is one of the key elements to creating longevity in the staff.
We could probably add morale.
Yeah, that's...
A little bit.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, hard to measure that one.
Yeah.
But people are happy to have a plan,
Yeah.
or unhappy not to have a plan.
Yeah.
Cost to implement the plan is 1.66%. What does that mean in real dollars? How much money is it going to cost to implement? Round numbers.
Of course, he asks the question as Tom leaves the room.
Timing is everything.
Maybe that was a
If
plan.
you'd allow me to step out for 10 seconds, I can go grab a document on my desk. I mean,
Do that.
makes sense. I don't want to throw out a number that's significantly off.
Was there a proposed outcome that you were...
Yeah, but this is not
I
the time
think
to
we
talk
might
about that.
have done the outcomes. We should have done the outcomes first.
Well, we kind of, I
I'm
think,
sure the
I
administration.
think
But
we-
not the
I think
measurable.
we have. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've all discussed why it is we're doing what we're doing, but I think there are some good ways we could track some of it. Like I said, I mean, part of it is, I mean, this is a voluntary program. I mean, it's an individualized program, but we're going to be able to track what percentage of our staff take advantage of it, and that will allow us to determine, again, it's either that people are making the decision not to do it, or that we need to
Change it.
beef up our offerings. I mean, it will allow both administration and I think the board to be able to have conversations around what we're trying to achieve and how we can better achieve it moving forward.
I'd
Yes.
like to see those outcomes, though, on the final proposal.
The estimated salary increase over the prior year is $462,490. That's salary. When you put in FICA, Social Security, and retirement, it is $528,857.
Is that the whole...
Rounded up, 529,000. Pardon?
The whole staff?
That's for teachers.
Teachers.
I'm sorry, I don't have support staff.
Teachers
Would
only.
be considerably less than that.
If I recall correctly from our business services.
$150,000 for support staff.
600,000 total.
I'm sorry, Amy?
I said if I recall correctly, it's like 660,000 total from business services.
And And not to put Tom on the spot, but I guess I'm going to put Tom and Craig on the spot. You know, we're making some assumptions about the fact that the state is going to be providing us with some additional funding that will allow us to support this. And I think Tom has costed out, if at the end of the day in October, we get $50 a student, or we get $100 a student, or we get $150 a student, or we get what is currently on the table, $200 a student. But those dollars are already, they're not like new additional to what we believed would fund this. They're part and parcel of what we're hoping will fund this. I mean, I think we all understand that there's not it's not a surprise that now the vast majority of districts in our state have gone to referendum. And an increasing number of them are passing referendum that have as part and parcel of it operating dollars, because there just has been constriction in terms of what we have available budget-wise from the state.
Other questions? We have this slated to come back to the board at our March, is it 13th board meeting. However, I do believe that we need to have resolve with contracts. It would be great if we could have action on contracts as well as compensation model that evening. We will have a specific recommendation written out so it's very clear as it relates to the supplemental pay plan.
Thank you. And
Okay.
thank you to Barb and Jeff for being the board representatives on both of those committees. Okay, so meeting dates, times, locations, and future agenda. Our next board meeting will be March 13th. Moving into item 7, which is closed session. 1985 paren 1 paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And closed session 1985 paren 1 paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically 2018 negotiations with SBAEA, AFSCME, Teamsters, and administration, specifically positions, strategies, and offers. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, could you call the roll, Sue?
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Portson?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Ebo?
Yes.
Mr. Contos?
Yes.
Ms. Rano?
Yes.
Ms. Furler?
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Let's take about a 10-minute break.